Hey, good afternoon, guys. This is Paul Smith with 12 Rivers Realty, and today we're going live on September 3rd for our 12 at 12. We're going to be talking about a bunch of different things today. We're going to be talking about cap and stitch. We're going to be talking about Endeavor just made a large purchase over at the Dog's Head, which for those that don't know about the Dog's Head, it's a part of the Dog's Head is a part of the Colorado River past the Longhorn Dam. Basically, so I don't know if you guys know this or not, but there's actually two Colorado rivers out there in the world. There's the one that I would consider the real Colorado River, which comes from Colorado and then goes out towards Lake Mead. And then there's the Texas Colorado River, which actually doesn't even start in Texas. It doesn't start in Colorado. It starts someplace in Texas and then rolls down through and creates our lake system. As you guys know, we have Town Lake, Lake Austin, Lake Travis, Lake LBJ, Lake Buchanan. All those different lake systems is where we get our drinking water. Well, the Longhorn Dam is basically is the furthest dam downriver within our lake system, and that's over off of Pleasant Valley on the east side. So as the water seeps out from there, you'll see you got like Festival Beach or Secret Beach over in that area. And so that's where the Doghead is made up. And so the Dog's Head is an area just south of the river, in between the river and the airport. Not so historically, it's been very industrial, right? So um, you'll have really just like cement mining plants and in areas where they're going and mining just limestone and whatnot. So that way they can create cement, so that way they can build. That area has also historically hasn't had any utilities, and it's right in the flight path. So there's been a bunch of reasons why it hasn't been developed, but Endeavor's been able to piece together 3,000 acres or close to it. And so it's going to be interesting to see what they're going to do there. Like I said, that will really be something that will help improve that area just north of the river along 183 and Bolm Road. Kairoy is doing a new project. And then on Bolm Road, east of 183, there's going to be a new park that's going in that the city's doing. It's going to have like dirt jumps and stuff like that. So that's going to be interesting. You guys, again, this is the 12 at 12 with Paul Smith. If you guys don't know this, I've been in real estate 20 years. I've been helping develop real estate, helping develop agents, been an entrepreneur with multiple years experience in the restaurant scene, in the in the bar scene, as well as hosting events and trying to do what we can to help give back to the Austin area. So guys, thanks again for tuning in. And like I said, today we're going to talk about a couple different things. Main one, again, is going to be the Dog's Head development. So that 3,000 acres. You think about all the things that are coming along the east side of 183, which I would say for the longest time has been that area that hadn't really developed. As you look at kind of Austin's gentrification from, let's call it 35 over to directly east of downtown, which you'll have Holly Street District and East 6th Street. And then it slowly from there, it pushed north, right? It pushed north and it pushed east, but it kind of stopped at airport for the longest time. And as it was at airport, it kind of filled up north. As you're going over to 11th Street, you got the Rosewood development going on over there. You've got the stuff over up East MLK, all the way up to Manor Road. For those that remember, or it's still there actually, but Salty Sow was kind of like one of the OG kind of like high-end restaurants over on Manor. Shout out, by the way, I just went to Hoover's the other day. Man, it's like going to Chili's. It's like, man, taste buds have really changed. Shout out to Hoover's for still being there, by the way. Hoover's is Hoover's is like a super old school Southern comfort restaurant in Austin. They've got amazing wings, great chicken fried steak, which is the first time I've had a chicken fried steak since probably the last time I've been at Hoover's. But man, it's shout out to Hoover's. They're doing it. I don't know how the fuck they're still open, honestly. Given that we're the only one there, but yeah, I'm assuming that they probably own the building and the rent is cheap. Anyways, I digress. And that's kind of the way that the gentrification in Austin went, right? And then you had the Mueller development that came in, and no, that's about finished, right? And so that is how gentrification's gone, and now it's gone up to say 51st Street, right at Mueller or Miller, depending on where you are. And it's really starting to kind of seep over 51st Street. You're starting to see new construction happening in those areas. You're still seeing a lot of remodels. And so typically the way that you'll see neighborhoods flip is you'll see a bunch of remodels happening. And then what happens is that dirt becomes worth so much that it doesn't make sense to remodel it anymore. So then you go ahead and tear it down and then you redevelop at that point. That's typically the life cycle of of gentrification. And so in redevelopment. And so as we've seen Airport Boulevard kind of be that dividing line, all of a sudden in the before the last kind of big push into East Austin, right before the pandemic, you started to see a lot more new construction happening in 78721 zip code east of Airport. And then that made its way north all the way up to say 183. Well, now you're seeing all these new developments taking place on the other side of 183. So if you're thinking, okay, where's Austin going and where can I put money? To me, it's east of 183. Obviously, there's a bunch of reasons for that. Right? We talk about it until we kind of blue in the face, but Tesla being over in that area. You also have a large development over at Colony Loop over off of Loyola that you guys should take a look at. That's a 210-acre site. The company that redeveloped the Miller redevelopment is going to be redeveloping Colony Loop. And so that's another project that'll be 10 years out. And then once that's done, they'll go on to something else. But also, if you guys get a chance, Google the Decker Lake redevelopment. Those that are familiar with Decker Lake, I think Decker Lake reminds me of the lake that's in The Simpsons, where you probably have some fish that have three eyes. It's a dude. It's real fucking creepy. Yeah, there's a power plant over there. So, but they're redeveloping it. So who knows? If you get cancer while you're living over there, it's not my fault. Oh, shout out to Clarissa, by the way. She says, what's the supply like over there?" Supply in these areas is actually really tight. It's not nearly as um, it's I would say an equilibrium to a little bit more on the seller's market side. And so if you think about price as a pyramid, right? And as you go up the pyramid is going up in price, there's going to be less and less buyers that can afford that. And so at the lower price points in Austin, you're going to have more buyers that can afford that. And then the other thing too is you start to sprinkle in investors because at those price points, those early price points or those lower price points, you're going to be able to cash flow or you're going to be able to do cash flow neutral, which is a great way to hold land, especially if you're buying dirt with the potential of redeveloping it at some point, then it becomes a covered land play. And so, yeah, it might be a little bit longer to exit, but depending on what your investment strategy is and how long you're going to be in the game, that could be something that's worth doing. And so, I feel like I kind of got lost on a little tangent there, but all of this basically wraps up into saying the Dog's Head is is and has been acquired by Endeavor. Endeavor also did the domain. Man, we got Tez in the house. Tez, hope you're well, man. Thanks for joining. Looking forward to we'll talk about some real estate, Tez, but shout out to Philly in the house. Looking forward to getting you back to Austin at some point, man. Man, Tez is that dude that you'll see. He is just like you'll see a guy wearing like a mask that people wear to make it like so it's harder to work out while jumping rope and doing boxing exercises by himself. This guy is just a beast. And he'll just randomly jump into a boxing gym and fight people. So shout out to Tez, by the way, man. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for tuning in, bro. Yeah, so the Dog's Head. So that whole area there, to me, if you model this out 5 years from now, is going to be I'm very bullish on that area. It's going to take Endeavor a while to go ahead and redevelop that site. One of the reasons is the soil composition right now isn't great, right? So that is all the Dog's Head part of Austin is going to be a very kind of like a sandy clay type of a soil, which is not wonderful for foundations. So it's going to take them a while to redevelop it. They wouldn't have bought it if they didn't think that they're going to be able to get utilities there. The other thing is that typically you're not, to my knowledge, in the Dog's Head, you're not able to put residential because you can't put residential right under the flight path like that. Because if you think about where it is, it's right under I mean, it's real close to the flight path. And, that kind of brings me to another thought. I was just reading, uh, Texas recently just put into a law that if you are a non-U.S. citizen um, or an LLC that's buying land, you cannot buy land if you cannot prove who you are, basically. And so this happened recently with one of my business partners. He's a member of the Texas Land Title Board, and the first thing he had to vote on was should Chinese corporations be able to own land in Texas, but specifically around Air Force bases, military bases, airports. And so I don't know if those out there that own LLCs or have LLCs, we recently, as of this year, had to say if you are an owner of an LLC, you have to show the U.S. government who you are. So you can have an LLC, and if you can't prove that you are a citizen or you are a real person, that's for them, that's a problem. And for those that are familiar what happened in Russia with the Ukraine about having drones that literally just kind of popped up and took out a bunch of Air Force bases, I think that's probably a concern that the government has. Obviously, it definitely feels like walking the line of discrimination in a lot of ways. And that's something that's certainly not good. And at the same time, you would think that they would want to have they would want to know who's owning the land that's butting up to a lot of these these commercial properties and these military properties and whatnot. Crazy stuff, man. Yeah, absolutely. Guys, again, my name's Paul Smith with 12 Rivers Realty. You're listening to the 12 at 12. And a couple of people asked me this week, what's my why? Like, why do I do this? Why do I just sit on a camera and talk for 30 minutes about bullshit? Uh, Mo, what's up, man? Hope all's well. Hope you've been well. Dude, I've been doing real estate for 20 years, and this is something that I'm just like crazy passionate about. And, Jay-Z has this line that says he's made more millionaires than the lotto did. And for the longest time, that's something that resonated with me because I've been able to help people build wealth through real estate throughout the course of my career. And that's been something that's been a lot of fun to see people start to enjoy that type of a financial freedom, from whether it's buying their first house and then taking that house, turning it into a rental, buying their second one, all the way to I've had people that have bought 10, 15 properties, work with developers that I've done hundreds of deals for. So, kind of running that gamut is what keeps it interesting because at the end of the day, we're working with all different people from all different walks of life, but it's ultimately about building community and that's it, man. Community is where it's at. Talking about somebody that's building up community, Mo is definitely doing that, man. Shout out to Mo. What else are we going to talk about today? Six Flags in Austin, man, and I actually don't think it's actually Six Flags in Austin, but for those that don't know, do me a favor and we don't Google anymore, right? We what do we WhatsApp? What do we chat GPT it? Is that you GPT it? I don't know, whatever the kids are saying. So GPT this shit is check out what they're doing out at Coda, right? So Circuit of the Americas is not only has the Germania, let's call it a 16 to 20,000 person amphitheater. You have the F1 track. You have a full on amusement park that's being built out there, as well as they're bringing resort level hotels. They're really going to make Coda a destination. And so if you're out there and you're seeing kind of what they have going on, they have like three different circles of different types of entertainment, right? They have the racetrack, they have your Six Flags, and then I think they're doing a water park as well. And so they're like, look, this is all going to be brought in. Man, Chad, hope all is well, man. Great to see you on there, dude. It's been a minute. Man, I have a crazy story with Chad involving one Christmas, but we're not going to talk about it on camera. Uh, and so there's like, even if you look at San Antonio and Dallas, right? If you look at where all these things are positioned, Austin is going to be the only place where it has it all positioned on the same track of land, which is cool. So shout out to Coda for coming up with that. Obviously, that's a much bigger play. And that's another reason why I think just kind of the Southeast corridor is kind of the last part of Austin that's just not developed yet. It's definitely coming, but if you're looking at putting some money in there, I think Easton Park is a great opportunity. I think Prado is a great opportunity. Those neighborhoods are great. What else we got? What am I currently working on? Man, I am currently working on a couple different investment opportunities. I have 44 lots that we redeveloped, bought in 2011. It was 22 lots at the time, and then subdivided it, turned it into 44 lots, and we've got about 12 lots left. I've currently met with Icon, which is 3D printing homes. We're looking at taking down 10 homes on that, in that area, as well as there's another 70 units that would be built beside that. That would be partnered up with that. So let's see if that's an 80 home development with 3D printing. If that's something you guys would like to learn more about, let me know. We'd be price point starting right at like 600, sub 600, which is a phenomenal price point specifically for 3D printed homes. And so why that deal really works out is that we'll actually go ahead and build the model homes for the larger project and then go from there. So that's one of the deals that I'm currently working on right now. And then I've got another one where we're doing warehouse office kind of flex spaces. So currently in the process of building out 165,000 square feet of office space slash warehouse space in over in Driftwood, Dripping Springs area, real close to Circle C. The numbers on those are silly. So if you guys are interested in learning more about that, or purchasing investment properties, definitely let me know. Um, Man, it looks like, okay, somebody just asked real quickly, if you were a new agent, what is one thing that you would do to start your business? Man, I think it's been a while since I've been a new agent, but having worked with a lot of agents that have either been, you know, brand new or coming to 12 Rivers and then learning from experience, I would say to you, take out all ego, and at the same time, while removing your ego, start reaching out to everybody. What I've found is those that are very successful in this business are the ones that say, you know what, I'm just going to do it and I'm going to learn along the way, versus being somebody that's like, okay, I got to learn it all first. That that's gonna put you behind at least 6 months versus somebody that's just gonna jump right in the pool and just start doing it. So if you're thinking about becoming a real estate agent, I would strongly suggest that you just jump in and you go full force. This isn't something where you could dip a toe in, and I know that can be a little bit scary. Shoot, it can be a lot of it scary at the end of the day, uh, because there's no in real estate, it can be one of the most financially liberating or debilitating things based on how you treat your business. And I think it's important for us to acknowledge that it is a business, right? Even if you work at Compass, 12 Rivers, DE, wherever you work, at the end of the day, you run your business. You just happen to be, working at a different brokerage or at a brokerage, and that's what that brokerage supplies. But I think one thing is that people forget that being in real estate means that you are your own business owner. And so, one of the things my partner Kevin always says is, if you're starting out in real estate, you get to work half a day. You just pick which half. You're going to be working 12 hours a day, and so that's how it's going to work. Guys, this is Paul Smith with 12 Rivers Realty. This is the 12 at 12. If you guys have any questions about real estate, please let me know. If you have any questions regarding um, anything at all, let me know. And what's got a got an event coming up. Doing something over at Devil May Care, which is going to be exciting with Trackstar. Yeah, it's gonna be dope. Yeah, yeah, Trackstar. Run the Jewels. I don't know if you guys heard of them. Killer Mike's gonna be in town, and so we're doing a event at Devil May Care on the 12th. So that'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, September 12th. Yep, flyer will be coming out real soon. That'll be a good time. And 100% of proceeds going to Dawa. Shout out to Shaka. So yeah, this will be kind of like the after party of that, basically. And so it'll be just donation at the door, trying to bring in some more money for the fam. Guys, again, this is Paul Smith doing the 12 at 12. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. We're also live on X, YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn. Yeah, a lot of fun. Shout out to, we got Violin Swing in the house. Fuck that name up. Yeah, man. Welcome. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Yeah, today, what's happening in the Austin market? feel like it's bottomed. We've got Fed's getting ready to drop rates, drop a quarter, I think is what the prediction is. Look, if they drop it less than a quarter, I think that's going to be negative. I think the mortgage rates will go up. If they drop it more than a quarter, I think that it's also going to be negative because that's going to indicate that the market's in a really bad situation. I don't know if you guys are tracking, but Trump just announced that there's a national emergency in real estate right now. And what that does is that frees up a bunch of money that he doesn't have to go to Congress to go ahead and drop. And so, anytime we're talking about real estate and we're talking about the government putting more money into the market, it's going to be a positive thing for prices. It can be a positive thing for mortgage rates, right? There's two different ways that you can increase affordability in the housing market. One is lower rates, two, lower prices. And so, thing is, if you lower prices, that means that the seller is making less money. If you lower rates, it means the bank's making less money. And I'll tell you what I'm a favor of: banks making less, equity being more in the hands of the homeowners, because ultimately then that those funds are either going to trickle its way back into the market in some way, right? They're going to take those funds and they're going to spend it on something that should in theory benefit everybody that's on this chat right now. You guys, again, this is Paul Smith with 12 Rivers Realty. This is the 12 at 12. Thank y'all for tuning in, by the way.
What are the best real estate investment models that someone should enter? Like, what would be the ideal situation for that?
Right. So the question is, what are the best real estate investment models and what are some different ways to do that? So if you're thinking about getting into real estate and you're a renter, right? So let's go down the path of you're a renter right now and you're thinking about real estate and you make, let's call it, you make 50 to $70,000 a year and you want to own a home, you're sick of renting. Although right now renting looks pretty good because rental rates are down, but that's not going to be the case long term, especially as we still have a large influx of people moving to Austin. In our apartment inventory is not going to pace the amount of people moving here. And it's going to take 2 to 4 years for apartment inventory to deliver anyways. Right. So if that's going to happen and that's going to take that much time, then what you need to figure out is how can I get into the market? And one way to do that, one way that I've seen people be very successful is if they were to buy a home and then they go ahead and rent out the other rooms. So that's something that you can do that is extremely affordable, right? There's homes in Lockhart right now that you can buy zero down, 265,000. Yeah, you live 25 minutes outside of town. Lockhart is super dope, blowing up, and you can have two roommates if you have a three-bedroom. Let's say your payment all in is let's say your payment all in is 2,200. And so your roommates, let's say you charge each of your roommates $1,000 a month all in. That means that you're paying probably, let's call it with bills and everything else, maybe 750. But the thing is, what you're not understanding is that you're now opening yourself up. Bobby, what's up, man? Shout out to Bobby in the house. Um, is what you're doing is you're opening yourself up to things that you're not receiving right now, which is the ability to write off your interest and the ability to write off your property taxes. Guys, those out there that are making 50 to 70,000 a year and your W-2 income, you are exactly what the government wants because you're paying more in taxes than somebody that's getting 70,000 a year as 1099. And really, you're paying more in taxes than somebody that's probably making close to 100 a year because they're going to be able to write off a bunch of things that you can't write off. Like, for example, if you're 1099 and you have an S corp and your business is set up properly, you're going to be able to write off your cell phone, right? If that's, I don't know how much a cell phone costs, it's $100 a month, whatever it is. You're going to be able to write off your internet. You're going to be able to write off a bunch of different things. Well, if you make 100,000, you have 30,000 in write-offs, then you're paying taxes on the equivalent of 70,000. Whereas if you're making 100,000 on W-2 and you have those $30,000 in expenses, because you're going to have the same expenses, you're paying taxes on that 100K. So the amount of expendable income that you have at that point is going to be substantially less on a monthly basis. So that's something right there. Oh, Denise Cook Smith in the house. Shout out to that middle name. I'm just not going to drop it. Here we are. I got wifey in the house now, so I got to be careful, y'all. Nobody quit talking shit, Bobby. It's messed up. No, if it's me, that's one thing that I would do is so then Paul Sales. Hey, that's me. Uh, that's one thing that I would do if I was if I was renting right now and I'm like, you know what? Let's say I'm in my young 20s to young 30s, I would definitely look at doing that. And there's going to be a huge benefit, not just in the fact that you're getting in at some point at a price point, assuming that prices are going to continue to go up, but then also you're lowering your monthly expenses significantly because you're renting out rooms. And then at the same time, you're also now writing off your interest, writing off your taxes, your property taxes. So that's huge. Let's say your property interest is $14,000 annually, and let's say your property taxes are 6,000, right? So that, roughly that's $20,000 annually. Now, if you're making 100,000 a year and then you write off that 20,000, now you're paying taxes on 80,000. Well, if you're in a 30% tax bracket, that's $6,000 annually that you're saving just by doing the same thing. So that's $500 a month. So if you think about it, net net, if you're each roommate's paying 1,000 and 1,000, and you're paying that 750, now all of a sudden your tax savings, your net effective rate to live is $250 a month. That's pretty dope, especially if you buy a new construction home. Now you're not have to worrying about deferred maintenance and everything else. And then if I were you, I would go do that every year. If I was 25 years old, I would go do that every year. I would rent out that one and then go buy another one next year. I would rent out that one. I would go buy another one. Because if you can buy zero down, all of a sudden by the time you're 30, you could end up with 5 homes. And let's say Austin real estate historically appreciates 5.6% a year, and you're starting out at a $300,000 price point. So shit, even if it's just 5%, right? You're getting 15,000 in equity each year, 15,000 in net worth. Well, if you multiply that by 2, that's 30, by 3, that's 45, by 4, it's 60. So then every year you're being able to do that. All right, somebody just asked here, does student loan debt hinder one's ability to buy property either for a primary residence or investment purposes? Student loan debt will, in the way that it will go against your DTI, or what's called your debt to income ratio. So depending on what your rate is on student debt, if it's something extremely low, I wouldn't repay it. I would just pay it back at whatever it's coming back at. Don't overpay that, because if you're at a 3% note, that's great right now. You would probably even be making money on that, versus if you were to refi that at, like, say, 6% or something else. So when it comes to student debt, yes, it will go against your debt to income ratio. Prime example, right? If you can do let's say you can do, for easy math, 50% debt to income ratio when you buy a house, and your current monthly is $10,000 a month, and you want to buy a house that has $5,000 a month in payment all in, that's also including your car payment and everything else, right? That's your whole debt to income is going to be what's going to be considered in that debt to income ratio. Your student loan is also going to be considered in that as well. So yeah, DTI is definitely considered, or student loans definitely considered with your DTI. And shout out to, speaking of DTF, Toddy's in the house. Shout out to Toddy, Toddy B, the man, the myth, the legend over at Douglas Elman. So Toddy, hope all's well. Miss you, man. Missed you this weekend. Shout out, get Randy in the house as well. But no, that was a great question. Again, guys, if it were me and I was a 20 to 30 something, I would always, don't we know it? I would definitely look at doing some sort of a roommate situation, because you can go ahead and buy a home relatively low down payment, rent out rooms. And if you're the leader in your community, or you're the leader in your friend group that's like, look, I'll buy this, we'll use my credit, and then go down the road. And if they're down to rent, then that's something I would definitely consider doing. And that's, I think, one of the easiest ways for you to buy real estate. Let's call it over the next 5 years, if that's a model that you want to go. DTF Toddy, always. Down, down, I don't even know. We're not gonna go there. But again, I think that's one of those things where if you're going to buy a home and that's what you want to do, then that is a way. I would make a bold prediction that if you were to do that today, and over the next 5 years, you were to buy one home, zero down, out in Lockhart, by the time you're 40, you would be a millionaire, without any money, basically, because you can go ahead and you can rent that home. The current rental rates will cover the payment next year, down to rent, down to buy, DTB, down to Bergener is what I call it. Down to fiduciary. That's it. Way to go, Bobby. Shout out. Yeah, the chat's blowing up right now. We got Toddy at the house, Bobby, got Sam from Juice. Hope all's well. Chris Anderson, what's going on, man? Chris Hernandez, my bad. Chris, man, keep up with the content, dude. You're killing it out there. That would be my, if I'm a, like I said, if I'm a 20-year-old, 25, 30, whatever, and I want to be I think that would be the best way to become a millionaire in real estate and not put any money down, right? There's USDA projects or USDA loans that you can do right now that you can buy zero down and then rent out to friends and then just rinse and repeat over the next 5 years down to refinance. Yeah, what, come on. That's right, babe. Bring those rates down. You're right. Come on. Bringing the rates down. That's a great question. I don't know if you guys know this, but we actually have a studio audience here as well. So we've got a bunch of people going on. They're running around. Down to is bringing the rates down, right? So right now, if you were to buy a home, you'd be looking at a rate of very low sixes. The hope is by the end of the year, we'll have rates in the, let's call it low to mid fives. I think if that happens, date the rate. That's right. Denise is hanging out with too many lenders that are trying to sell you some shit. By the way, date the rate was a great slogan, but for those that dated the rate, so to speak, and did a 3-2-1 buy down, they're pissed. Basically, they're thinking, well, my rate's going up, and really hoping that it's time to refi. So we'll see. I do think that if we get rates down in the low fives, you're going to see a huge spike in business across the overall market, and I think the government knows that as well. Man, we got Julian in the house. By the way, Julian, thanks for jumping in here, man. Hope all is well. Um, I think that's it, right? We get rates lower. I think that the market's gonna jump up. How are builders able to buy down rates? Well, one thing that they're able to do is that they're able to pay up front for that rate to go ahead and drop that, right? And so the way that rates work, you have par, right? So par is like, let's call that zero, not zero rate, but just even. And so let's say if the par rate is 6 today, if you wanted to pay hypothetical like 1 point, right? So 1 point on $100,000 home is $1,000. And let's say you work with your lender, you're like, look, I want to buy down my rate. Well, if I want to buy it down to 5.5 and the par is 6, then I would have to give that lender money to buy my rate down. Conversely, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll actually roll the rate up a little bit and then get money back, right? Because I think money looks better in my bank account than it does in my loan. And a lot of that sometimes will depend on how long I'm going to own the home and how I'm going to model that out. But as an investor, I would prefer to have more liquidity than to have property or to have that money into the actual property itself. Now that's completely different if the builder's paying for it, because you got to think about the reason why a builder would do that is because they care about the overall comps of the market, right? If you're selling one home, that's one thing, you can drop the price. But if you're selling 100 homes, so now every thousand that you drop that first home, you're going to multiply that by 1,000, right? So that 1,000 there really can hit you 100,000. I got Selma in the house. Tom Ward, thanks for jumping in. But if you think about it, that 100,000 now spreads out over multiple properties. And that's a reason why a builder would then prefer to buy down your rate. Again, remember what I said, there's two ways that you can increase affordability. One, it's lowering the rates. Two, it's lowering prices. If you're a builder, you want to pay for the rate to drop because you want the comps on the top end. So that way there, when you're selling, let's say houses 0 through 10, those are going to sell at a certain price, but you're going to slowly ratchet up the price. So that way there on homes 50 through 100, your profitability is significantly more on the back end. Well, somebody screenshot that. Denise said, you're actually making sense to me. That's impressive. Mama, we made it.
Do you go or you can
This Red Bull is giving me wings.
Mm.
That's I'm going to end on a high note. My wife just told me I'm actually making sense to her. That's great. As again, this is Paul Smith with 12 Rivers Realty, tuning in for your 12 at 12. Thanks for tuning in. See y'all next week. If you guys have any questions, snide remarks, anything like that, please feel free to hit me up. If there's any snide remarks, please feel free to hit up Denise because she's really good at handling the complaints. Again, thank y'all for tuning in. Be good.